Hey folks, welcome to Inside Arm Wrestling, the home for all news on arm wrestling, fitness, strength, sports, and competition. It is after the Super Bowl, and folks, the internet is just on fire with whether or not Kyle Shanahan choked as a coach, whether or not Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT, whether or not Travis Kelce can sing
Viva Las Vegas!
As well as Taylor Swift. There's just a lot of social media focus on that football game. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. Guess what, folks? If you weren't listening and you go back to our YouTube video about who would win in the quarterbacks in the matchups, Greg J. Sharp of World Series of Arm Wrestling, did predict that Patrick Mahomes would win as the arm wrestler against all of the competition and win the Super Bowl. So if you go to the season next year and want to know who the picks are, you should listen to Inside Arm Wrestling, because I am certainly giving you all the information you need outside of this sport as well as inside the sport. Which brings me to our fun topics of the day. Folks, let's get into East versus West. I'm a fan of Engen. I don't think anybody has heard me say otherwise. I really admire Engen for what he is doing, what he's done. And one of the things that I think is really snazzy, I'll use as a word, he likes to do these trading cards. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a fan. So I'm going to go to one of his newest trading cards and design, East versus West 12 card design, featuring Devon Larratt and Levan Saginashvili. Okay, Saginashvili, however you want to say it. I'm not as articulate with last names as maybe many of them are, but I will say this: Devon versus Levan is all you need to say when you're talking about the two best super heavyweights in the world right now. And as you look at these trading cards, kudos to Engen for the information that they put on here. And I want to go over it because I think it's really pretty cool. You've got Devon Larratt, age 48, which as Devon has aged, he has certainly gotten more dominant. Certainly that special kind of pancake that he likes to eat has increased a lot of the value of the man's physicality, but at a whopping 6'5" tall and at a very svelte 265 pounds, he is an athlete's athlete in body dimension. His bicep is measured at 18.5. It looks like on this card. It could be that the 8 and the 9 blend in. We'll call it 19.5 because who cares? I mean, the guy's got huge ass arms. So at 19.5 inches and a forearm at a whopping 16.5 inches, those are really incredible dimensions for a man that tall. When you look at size and you look at body types, you look at bodybuilders, powerlifters, for the most part, they typically are not in the 6'5" or better range. Number one, because when you're taller, it's often harder to build sizable muscle. Not necessarily sizable strength, but sizable muscle. Where a 5'7" bodybuilder might be sporting 22 to 25-inch guns. But when his arm and size can hold a value of muscle mass to that degree, it's more likely that he can than not versus someone who's 6'5". And to be honest with you folks, in the sport of arm wrestling, I think the bigger the arm is not necessarily a true dynamic of what level of arm wrestler they are. Certainly a larger bicep and forearm would mean more strength in that development area. However, we do know that arm, elbow to fingertip lever, wrist thickness, wrist size, connective tissue, lat, front delt, pec, all play a role in that arm wrestling move. But just fun to be able to see these dimensions, and you look across the table and you see Levan, who at 6'3" and at 35 years young, 13 years junior to Devon. And think about that, folks, 13 years junior. So Levan, however you want to say his first name, we'll stay with Levan. My apologies, Levan, if it's Levan. 13 more years of growth that this man has in the sport. But in a sport that has a lot of injury and a lot of setbacks, kudos to Devon, who is really a man that's standing the test of time. And now we look at some of the statistics. 6'3", which is right around what I would call an average super heavyweight height, 6'3" to 6'4", but a huge 415 pounds. An additional 150 pounds on his frame to Devon's 265. His bicep. Now, his bicep measures 24.8 inches, almost 25 inches. Let's put that into perspective. The man is not shredded to the bone. He is a big man. He has a huge arm, and that arm is certainly thick and it's certainly strong. But when you look at the shredded nature of Devon Larratt's arm, the vascularity, the separation in his arm, it's easy to see, in my opinion, that perhaps there's not as great of a strength component difference between his 19.5 and Levan's 24.8. His forearm is 20.8 inches. So that means his forearm is larger in circumference than Devon's bicep. I'm going to say that again. His forearm is bigger in circumference than Devon's bicep, which, again, we do know that the man holding an extra 150 pounds is less likely to be smaller in any comparison because of that weight. So to be fair to Devon, if Levan was to shred down to, let's say, 350 pounds, to drop 65 pounds, it would be interesting to see where that bicep and forearm circumference measurement would go to. And if you did find where that was at 350, could you extrapolate that back even more if he dropped down to 265? Perhaps. Hard to tell. But nonetheless, a man with 25-inch arms is no less than impressive. So one of the things that they actually do and they rate, which I think is kind of interesting, is he goes on to rate on these playing cards inside, outside, and side pressure. So what that really means, folks, is on the inside, if Devon comes to the inside, comes inside with whether it's a hook or it comes inside on a press, they've got him somewhere 9 out of 10. So if 10 is the best, he is one short of the best. Not 9.5, but on the inside, they have him at 9, where they have Levan at 10 out of 10. On the outside, if it goes to the outside, again, out of a 10 ratio, both of these men are considered the best in the sport with 10 out of 10. Side pressure. Side pressure is that movement of perpendicular to the pad, sweeping down. It's not a sweep of 30 degrees. It's not a press. It's more of a pressure from that hand and that wrist straight back to the pad. Side pressure for Devon, 9 out of 10. And side pressure for Levan, 10 out of 10. So now if we look at the 3 most popular ways to arm wrestle, with the exception of shoulder pressure. Jerry Carteret might be the 10 out of 10 shoulder pressure super heavyweight of the world. But the 3 major areas of movement on a arm wrestling table, Levan is a 10 out of 10, and Devon is a 9.5 or 9.3 out of 10 on average. Each of these men equal on side pressure, but here's where I think some of this comes into play, where the equaling factors for Devon certainly shine through. On a table IQ, I think it would be very, very, very hard to say that with the exception of maybe John Brzenk, that there's an actual smarter arm wrestler on the table than Devon. He's 10 out of 10. But I'm going to tell you something. I think the table IQ for Levan is a little bit overstated. I've watched Levan. I've watched his matches. He's not multi-dimensional on the table in many aspects. And I don't recollect any matches in his past or immediate presence that he's had to show an acumen on the table that would level him up to 9 out of 10. He's extremely good at his move, folks. Extremely good. I mean, the best in the world right now. He is the super heavyweight champion. However, I think the table IQ is a much bigger difference than they're making this seem. I would even be fine with Levan as 8.5. Certainly 9 out of 10, a big overstatement. Experience 10 out of 10 for Devon. Hard to beat 10 out of 10. The man has pulled for over 30 years or thereabouts. Experience, again, 9.5 out of 10. I think that's a little bit overstated. I mean, certainly Levan has been on the world stage. He has some world titles. But is he the most experienced arm wrestler out there? I think that's a bit overstated. Wrist, if you've got 20-inch forearms, folks, you've got an amazing wrist. Hand control, well, I don't know, folks. The last time these two met, Levan certainly took Devon's hand, but they gave a slight advantage to Devon on the hand control. Explosiveness, I think they may have this understated for Devon. Devon is an interesting arm wrestler in my opinion, and I think that he's a product of his experience. And what I'm trying to get out of that is, if you've ever enjoyed going to a seminar with Devon, he is a man that will allow you to pull on him for a long period of time. And therefore, I think that his experience has kind of positioned himself as a defensive or a catching or a standoff arm wrestler. But to say that his explosiveness is 8 out of 10, I think that's an understatement. I think generally that's an understatement. Now, for Levan, 9.5 out of 10. It's easy to see when he kicks it into gear, he's moving through. There's not a lot of guys out there, let's put it, folks, that with what Levan takes on a supplement level, on a gear level, that's going to be able to stop the power that this man is driving. Once he kicks it into gear, explosiveness aside, very hard to think that he's not explosive. But here's the thing that I really believe has been maybe an oversight, or maybe it's not an oversight. Maybe it's just the fact that Devon can't slow him down. But endurance, Devon is no limits, right? I mean, he's always been known as no limits. He's a 10 out of 10. But we have certainly seen Levan with the oxygen mask, with the heavy sweats, the heavy breathing. Again, a 9 out of 10 for Levan is extremely generous. I just think that that's a huge misnomer. I can't believe that he's a 9 out of 10 in endurance. But here's the thing. Until somebody can slow him down, you can put 10 out of 10 in endurance because he's got enough juice to get the job done. When we find someone that can actually stop him at some level and hold that wrist of his in the center of the table for any period of time to let blood flow into the forearm or into that bicep, then we're going to really see what endurance means for a guy like Levan. But I think 9 out of 10 is a very generous number. But let's face it, folks. The top 3 numbers in this equation have really been the tell of the tale for the first outing between these two. Levan is a 10 out of 10 out of 10. The question really becomes this. Can Devon become a 9.5, 10, or 9.5, on the top 3, or 10, 10, and 10? Maybe if 10 is the ultimate and Levan is the ultimate on the inside or the outside, they're even on the outside, but on the inside, Levan's got the advantage on outside pressure. If Devon can get to a 9.5 on these statistical, ratings, can something like endurance can something like hand control and can something like table IQ start to even this match and put it into the corner of Devon? But anyway, folks, that's a great analysis that Engen has given us. Certainly, Engen, you are a huge asset to the world of arm wrestling. We really, really, really appreciate the fact that you're doing what you're doing. Keep it up. And folks, drop a comment, drop a like, drop something inside the world of comments on YouTube, because it helps the algorithm. I'm not going to lie, folks. The algorithm needs you. I need you. The algorithm needs you. The U.S. Army needs you. I don't know. I mean, that sounds good. It's a good slogan. But anyway, folks, that wraps it up for another Inside Arm Wrestling Edition report. Remember, train hard, pull smart, live safe, and if you need football predictions for next year, watch our Celebrity Super Match, and that will tell you who your Super Bowl winner will be. Folks, if you like these stories and you want to see more, please hit the like button and subscribe to our page. Also hit the notification bell underneath the video so that way you're notified every time a new video comes out. And if you're on social media, specifically Instagram, go to the World Series of Arm Wrestling Instagram page. Please follow it. We'll try to follow you back, but it'll keep you up to date with all of the news and events in the world of arm wrestling.